Okay, today we're going to dive into the mind of one of the world's most brilliant thinkers, Charlie Munger. For decades, he was kind of the silent partner behind the legendary Berkshire Hathaway. But his real genius, it wasn't just about picking stocks. It was his completely unique way of seeing the world. So, for more than 40 years, Charlie Munger was the indispensable partner to Warren Buffett. Their legendary partnership wasn't built on some complicated contract. Nope. It was a simple handshake between two guys from the Midwest who just got each other. But while Buffett is famously chatty, Munger, well, he was a man of very, very few words. In fact, his signature line at the big Berkshire annual meetings became, "I have nothing to add." It got so famous that one year, Warren Buffett actually brought a life-sized cardboard cutout of Charlie with a pull string that would just play that exact phrase over and over. So you have to ask, right? If he barely spoke, what made him so essential? The secret isn't in what he said, but in how he thought. His whole approach is something he calls worldly wisdom. And believe me, it is a powerful framework for making better decisions, not just in business, but in life. The absolute foundation of this worldly wisdom is what Munger calls the latticework of mental models. At its heart, it's a pretty simple idea. You just can't understand reality if you're only looking at it through one lens. Munger argues that you have to learn the big, fundamental ideas, what he calls mental models, from all the major fields. We're talking physics, biology, psychology, economics, history, you name it. These are the core concepts that have really stood the test of time. But here's the key. It's not enough to just collect these models like stamps. You have to weave them together into what he calls a latticework in your head. This framework is what lets you see any problem from a bunch of different angles, not just one. It's about really, truly understanding something, not just memorizing facts so you can pound them back on a test. You gotta connect the dots. And this gets to the very core of why that latticework is so important. If you only have one or two models in your toolbox, your own human nature is going to force you to just torture reality to fit the one tool you have. It's that classic man with a hammer syndrome, and let me tell you, it is a disastrous way to go through life. Now, of all the disciplines out there, Munger believes one is absolutely critical if you want to avoid disaster, and that's psychology. He argues it's the key to understanding why incredibly smart people make totally bonkers mistakes. You see, Munger's point is that our brains are just full of these subconscious shortcuts and biases. One of the most powerful is something he calls incentive-caused bias. He tells this crazy story of a surgeon who for years was removing perfectly normal gallbladders, sending them to the lab by the bushel basket. Why would he do that? Because he got paid for every single operation he performed. The incentive completely warped his judgment. This quote actually hints at another one of Munger's core strategies. Instead of only asking how to find success, he often starts by figuring out the surest path to failure. And he actually learned this lesson from a pretty unlikely source, the late-night host Johnny Carson. So Carson told this audience he couldn't tell them how to be happy, but he could give them a foolproof recipe for being absolutely miserable. His list included things like, using chemicals to alter your mood, drowning yourself in envy and resentment, being totally unreliable, and just giving up after your first big failure. It was basically a perfect checklist of what not to do. And his whole idea of figuring out what not to do, well, that builds directly into one of Munger's most powerful mental models of all, inversion. It's the simple but really profound habit of thinking about problems backward. He got this idea from a 19th century algebraist, Carl Jacobi, who famously said, "Invert, always invert." Munger realized this wasn't just for math problems. A lot of life's hardest challenges are way easier to solve when you just turn them upside down. I mean, think about Einstein. He didn't try to force electromagnetism to fit Newton's laws. He inverted the problem and said, what if Newton's laws need to change? So instead of just asking, how can I help my business succeed? You should also be asking, what could absolutely positively destroy my business? You identify those catastrophic risks, and then you just make sure you avoid them. It's such a simple but profoundly effective way to stay out of trouble. Now, it's really important to get this. This isn't about learning a few clever tricks. For Charlie Munger, the path to worldly wisdom is a lifelong journey. It is a continuous process, not some final destination you arrive at. He built his latticework over an entire lifetime. As a young man, he was just a voracious reader, especially of biographies, making friends, as he put it, with the eminent dead. In his career, he relentlessly studied mistakes, especially what he called mistakes of omission, all the great opportunities they missed out on. And then later in life, he focused on teaching, even outlining a course he wanted to call Remedial Worldly Wisdom. His whole philosophy is really captured perfectly in this one simple habit. He believed the real advantage in life comes from compounding knowledge, just making small, tiny bits of progress every single day, year after year. That habit, he said, is the key, especially when you have a long run ahead of you. And that leaves us with Munger's ultimate challenge to all of us. This pursuit of worldly wisdom isn't just for billionaires or geniuses. It's available to anyone who has the curiosity to build their own latticework one model at a time. So the only real question is, what new model are you going to learn today?